Morning. All right. You're good. Ready to go. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm Councilmember Amir Faroki. I am standing in today as chair of the Atlanta City Council Transportation Committee. It is December 11th, our last committee meeting of the year. I'm joined by my colleagues, Councilmember Wan and Councilmember Dozier. Hopefully we'll have one more attendee for quorum when it comes time to vote on items, but we can go ahead and get started with a number of other items on the agenda, starting with public comment. We have one individual sign up today, Maurice Morris. Okay, please. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning, members of the Transportation Committee. My name is Maurice Morris, CFO of the world's only high-end rideshare mobile app, Rideshare Rates, a premium rideshare platform that offers luxury and eco-friendly transportation options to elevate the travel experience in Atlanta. As our city grows and continues hosting world-class events, the transportation landscape is evolving rapidly. Rideshare Rates is preparing to be a significant movement in the future of technical transportation experiences. We aim to integrate cutting-edge features like AI-driven ride matching, electric vehicle options, and personalized rider experiences that set new standards for the industry. However, as we prepare for this future, we face immediate challenges in educating the public about our platform. Like Uber, over a decade ago, Rideshare Rates needs designated spaces to engage with the public directly. Tents or trailers at high-traffic venues, such as Georgia World Congress Center, State Farm Arena, and Mercedes-Benz Stadium, are essential tools for helping potential riders understand how to use our app and take full advantage of our premium offerings. Looking ahead, the need for public education will only increase as driverless technology such as Waymo enters these areas. What will happen when autonomous vehicles need to demonstrate their features and safety protocols? Designated locations for public interaction will be critical to ensuring adoption and understanding. The policies and permits for driverless services will undoubtedly evolve, and now is the time to lay the groundwork for that future. Rideshare Rates is committed to leading this movement and preparing Atlanta for the next wave of technical transportation innovation. As respectfully ask this committee to consider establishing designated spaces for companies like mine to educate the public on site and streamline the permitting process for such activities. By doing so, Atlanta can solidify its reputation as a hub, transportation, innovation, and city ready for the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. All right, we have a couple of items we can handle without a quorum, and those include reports before the committee today. We have two reports. One is the ARC quarterly update, which is a handout in our committee packet. The other is a report from the Atlanta Department of Transportation. Commissioner Cavanis, the floor is yours. We can now. Sorry about that.
Okay. Good morning. Solomon Cavanis, Atlanta Department of Transportation. Happy Hump Day and last meeting of the year. So I'd like to bring great tidings and greetings from our department to present our fourth quarter presentation. And let's make sure we're queued. Okay. All right. So today we will discuss our capital projects across the city, safe routes to schools, safety improvements, more MARTA roadway improvements, state of good repair, and the Atlanta DOT industry recognitions. This organizational chart spells out who we have supporting our leadership, or rather who our leadership within the department. And I know we're all familiar with those beautiful faces. Just to speak to our vision, Atlanta DOT will deliver standard of excellence with consistent quality and value for safety, equity, and mobility for the city of Atlanta. Some of our core values include safety, customer service, being good stewards of and transparent and accountable, and employee commitment. our most valuable resource, our employees. So let's jump right into our capital projects across the city that are currently under construction. The Cascade project is one of great interest to the city. Phase 1, we're finalizing our easterly portion of the project in terms of design and how we're going to proceed to complete that work. We have gotten great momentum on the westerly portion of the project, and we're looking to accelerate that work. So we're excited to work with Councilmember Overstreet and the community to make sure that we are doing the right thing. Howell Mill Complete Streets is an ongoing project that has completed striping from Huff Road to 9th Street. That project has been accelerated with our utilities, and we're starting our safety and signal work January of 2025. Joseph E. Lowry Complete Streets, continuing sidewalk work, granite curbs, driveways, and ADA ramp installations. Juniper Complete Streets is a cooperative project with Midtown Alliance, and we've upgraded 95% of the sidewalks along the corridor, upgrades to the traffic signals, and we're looking for substantial completion by the end of this year. 5th Street Complete Streets, if you've been along Peachtree and 5th, 5th Street has a protected bike lane and looks phenomenal. So we appreciate the partnership with Midtown Alliance, and that project is slated for substantial completion in 2025, mid-2025. Okay, Spring Street Viaduct replacement. So if you look at, or if you're ever driving along MLK, just a couple blocks from here, that viaduct that connects over to the sports complex in the Federal District, we have begun replacing that structure, and the work is moving at a rapid pace. DeKalb Avenue safety improvements, we're closing that out with some punch list work by the end of this year, and Hurst Street unpaved roads phase 1 work is in the punch list phase. Also, Northside Drive and Mount Perrin roadway intersection improvements are ongoing. Phipps Boulevard, a lot of work going on up in Wyuka Road with the roundabout. So it's exciting work to improve conditions. And one great highlight is the Camilton Road resurfacing. So if you've been on Camilton Road or in the Greenbrier area, you'll find a fresh corridor. It looks really good out there and reminds me of the days when I was going out with my grandparents along the Camilton corridor when I was a little tyke. So Path 400, Miami Circle, we're doing a lot of work with Path 400. The Miami Circle work is approaching substantial completion. Waika Road and Loredon's conducting and installing trail handrails, signing, et cetera. 10th Street and Monroe Beltline improvements are approaching substantial completion. Looks pretty good out there, although we have some work to do with the community to make sure that with the changes we understand what the expectations are in terms of moving together. But those kids at Midtown High School and others are better off for that improvement, and it's a great partnership with Atlanta Beltline. So Crawford Long, I'll just speak to Safe Routes to Schools. We're working in District 12 on Crawford Long Middle School safety improvements for the Empire Boulevard improvements. There's a meeting in January with the community, so we're looking forward to getting back out there. And Sylvan Hills Middle School safety improvements, we'll be going out to the community to have conversations about preliminary designs. And more MARTA. Just want to mention that the Summerhill BRT, the first bus rapid transit system in the state of Georgia, is progressing. We're looking at substantial completion at the end of year 2025, and this corridor, the Summerhill BRT, will service South Side Beltline all the way into downtown to Georgia State and along the government complexes. So this is a very exciting project, and we've actually worked with MARTA, and they've installed the first platform, and on the other side of City Hall you'll see construction for the second platform. Just to speak of our resurfacing program, which is ongoing. We've gotten that rolling, and we look to continue our resurfacing into 2025. I will just call out University Avenue in District 12, and all the, it looks amazing out on University. And we have a number of other corridors, including downtown and Lindbergh Drive, Peachtree Street, that are coming. So this is just a list of how equitable we are in terms of making sure that we're taking care of all districts and all residents throughout the city. So I won't get into this list, but it speaks to all the signal upgrades, pedestrian improvements across the city, and all of our ADA improvements. And Councilmember Dozier, you'll see the Ralph David Abernathy Complete Streets project is wrapping up, and we're moving forward with the design for the second phase of that connection. Looking out west, I mentioned Howell Mill, Path, West Side Paper Trail, Paper Spur Trail, safety improvements, Bankhead Overhead Bridge is a conversation we're having with the railroads about that deconstruction. There are a number of activities in the downtown core, and the downtown improvements in preparation for FIFA World Cup are ongoing. We've gotten those rolling, and we're looking forward to bringing a new energy to the downtown district. And I will just continue on. So let's jump to our service requests. You'll notice that these numbers have, from third quarter to fourth quarter, fallen just a bit. Now, I will, full disclosure, say that we haven't finished fourth quarter, so obviously those numbers are lighter. But for some of the substantial service requests to include potholes, traffic signal repairs, you will find that we are picking up the pace and making sure that we close out as much as possible for some of those critical appurtenances and requests that come in. This is just another snapshot of our Q4 closeout work orders, work order closeouts, and our service delivery on time. So this has been a issue that we've been working on from an operational standpoint within the Atlanta Department of Transportation. However, we have recognized that there are duplicates within the data, and our work with the new CRM system hopefully will help address some of those. We've noticed about 15% of our work orders as duplicates, but you'll find that when crews go out, they actually take on additional work that they notice out on the road. So there is work to do in terms of our timelines, and I think there's a conversation personally that we need to have about our SLAs and our timelines, to include traffic studies and some of our processes to ingest those traffic studies. I'll move on to a high note, our pothole repairs. We've reached on average there about 42. Our goal is 30. We've exceeded those. However, you'll notice a dip in November, which has to do with use of time and some operational efficiency challenges that we've come into. So we're looking at other mitigation efforts in working with contractors and making sure our capital program helps us address pavement conditions. Light Up the Night, public-private partnership with Georgia Power, ongoing program, and we are looking to close this program out in Q1 of 25. One of the most successful programs within the department, and we've actually exceeded 15,000 of the lights that were committed as part of Phase 4. So this is something that we hold close to our heart as it relates to equity, safety, and security around the city as we work with APD to make sure we have a lit environment. So just to call out a couple recognitions, I just want to say congratulations to my team for the work they did as part of the Cheshire Bridge reconstruction. It was recognized by ACEC at the Georgia Transportation Summit just last week, and you know, it's phenomenal. Everyone talks about the I-85 situation and collapse, that fire, but we've been obviously dealing with fires, and that Cheshire Bridge work is just a miracle how fast we got that back up and running. And finally, I'll mention that the Intelligent Transportation Society of America, which is the organization that promotes and advocates for transportation technology, has just added me to their board as of yesterday. So looking forward to hosting the World here in Atlanta in August. The ITS World Congress, which was held in Dubai this year, will be hosted in Atlanta. And everyone from around the world will be here to talk about transportation, innovation, and technology. So we're looking forward to that this summer. So these are our social media handles, and we look forward to staying in communication with everyone and our citizens. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm sure you'll have questions from this robust and inquisitive body. Small but curious. We'll start with my colleague, Councilmember Dozier.
Thank you, Mr. Chair,
Substitute Chair.
Substitute Chair. Good to see you, Commissioner Cavanis, as always. I have a lot of questions, but some of them are going to be more lightning round style, and I recognize that some of my colleagues have questions as well. So I'll let you know if I'm happy to get a response later if you don't have an answer in front of you. But I do have a couple of big picture questions that I would love to get the department's thoughts on. With the incoming presidential administration, I imagine some of the grants and grant applications that we had envisioned, that line of sight might be not as clear and in focus as it might have been had we had a different election result, and wanted to get the department's philosophy around federal grant applications going forward, recognizing that that funding stream might be coming to a close or much more narrow than it has been before. What does that look like for existing grants that we have or grants that we don't have a grant agreement in place? Just want to get a sense of what the department's philosophy is over these next couple of months as with the incoming administration.
So given the data that we have and the conversations that we've had around the region and with our peer cities and federal folks, I will limit my comments to recognize that the bipartisan infrastructure law is law. So that money is available and will remain available. However, that unappropriated money as it relates to future grants and grants that we would like to pursue is potentially, will potentially be redirected or framed in a different way. So what I can do is commit to including council in the conversation with our partners. Obviously, it's not just the city of Atlanta that's experiencing this. It's the state of Georgia, it's the entire region, and our partners at ARC are critical to that conversation. So I will say we are doing an assessment of our plans or the plans prior to the election, and we're still in that process. You know, we will move forward with the money that we do have. However, some of the plans we had, we need to think about our strategy moving forward, and that's something that we need to do with the collective. So,
because you know, I know we have some big picture items like the Stitch. We have we had applied for some planning grants tied to reconnecting communities. Are any of those? I guess y'all are doing that assessment, but that's something that is a big concern for me. Recognizing, you know, we don't have grant agreements in place across the board for some things that we had been envisioning. So. Yeah.
So I'll speak to the Stitch. So the Stitch award included, it was more for the planning of the Stitch, and there's an anticipation that there's additional funding for the full build out. That's a conversation we're having with Georgia DOT and CAP, obviously. So I think there's a conversation to be had. We're living this in real time, and we actually went through a scenario planning exercise to think about what we can control and what we can't. But that's about all I can offer.
What about Central Pryor, the Safe Streets for All grant that we had there, or even the federal funding that we got for Relief Street and the expansion down towards the Flint River? Are those grant agreements in place currently?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So those are signed and executed, and we actually have a timeline to deliver on those. So we don't have to worry about the money that has been awarded.
And then as far as the timeline, I know I mentioned this briefly a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the Mayor Shirley Franklin Boulevard renaming potential for Central Avenue. I recognize with federal funding, those timelines are, those are harder to move than in other situations. But 2029 is a long time away, and we're going to be doing a lot of work to try to celebrate our former mayor. So I just want to reiterate, we'll love to see any sort of changes to that timeline that we can make happen with regards to Central Avenue.
Yes.
So I just want to continue to advocate for that as I can. Another question I had is with the ongoing deliberations for the parking contracts. How's that going? What's the timeline looking like for that? As I think about some of the challenges and some of the concerns that I get a lot from my constituents, that Councilmember Faroki gets a lot, I'm sure, for his constituents, since he has a very dense part of the city as well. Opportunities to ensure that parking enforcement includes keeping vehicles of any type out of certain rights of way, whether it's sidewalks or whether bike lanes. I want to continue to advocate for that, but just want to know what's going on with the overall parking.
Yeah. So we've developed a scope that we're evaluating further and trying to finesse or, tighten up. We are mandated to award in early 2025. So that means engagement for the scope that we have will begin actually just at the beginning of the new year. We're working with procurement to get that out the door. And speaking to the concerns around parking, loading zones, that scope, we've included technology and some other best practices from around the country that we want to exercise and share with everyone here, or the council.
Okay.
Just to make sure we're on the same page and have the same expectations. But as you know, we need to make sure that this is a tight RFP as it goes out. So there's a lot of work that's been done and going into how we get that out for award in 2025.
Okay. And it's going to reiterate the need to, enhance our enforcement abilities to get these vehicles out of these rights of way. Just as an example, MLK cycle track headed towards Atlanta University Center, during game days for Atlanta Falcons and other events that are happening at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. There are some bad actors that like to use that space to valet vehicles. And so the more enforcement that we can have and the more tools we have for enforcement, recognizing APD is doing a lot of work to keep our city safe, but can't always be out there enforcing traffic laws. Want to make sure that as much as possible gets baked into that parking contract. So I just want to reiterate that.
That's received.
The other question that I had was with regards to some specific, street projects that I've asked about over the last couple months. Over in Mechanicsville, we have a street that was originally going to get LMIG funding for resurfacing. This is Form Wall Street. Recognize that some of the conversations that we've had around the reallocation of LMIG funding, that got removed from that list, but want to reiterate, I'm happy to even commit dozen dollars to a resurfacing project, but we'll want to work with your team to make sure that happens as soon as possible. Something I've been trying to have happen since I've been in office. So just want to double back on that. Similarly, Langhorne Street, I recognize that it's a off-system safety enhancement project that GDOT is doing in support of ATL DOT, even though it's a city street. I want to know what the timeline and the status is of Langhorne Street, whether we're going to continue to look at a road diet there, or we're going to look at a roundabout there, or just want to know what's going on with that and the timeline for that, recognizing that off-ramp from I-20 is a very dangerous turn onto that street. So want to get a status on that. I've talked with the department before about White Street, Industrial White Street, right in front of Leighton White, all the way from Lee Street all the way to Cascade, with the improvements that we know are coming down the pipe for Lee Street, with the ongoing work that your team is doing with Cascade, and then the expansion that Ackerman is doing with the Liam White sort of development. That corridor needs a relook. And I'm happy to work with your team and even provide some discretionary dollars to at least get a study done so we can kind of re-envision what White Street looks like, but want to keep that prioritized and work with your team to make sure that happens. So someone from your team can reach out to our office to see what we can do to get that moving forward. One more comment about just sort of federal sort of theory of everything, Amtrak expansion. I know your team had been in conversations with both our federal partners as well as with some of our local partners, potentially CIM. What is going on with Amtrak expansion in the city of Atlanta?
So I'm not sure if the ARC presentation or they'll speak to that, but ARC has put out an RFP for request for interest related to alternative location study to look at opportunities within the region for where an Amtrak station might be located. So there have been ongoing conversations about the opportunity for replacing or relocating the existing system. And this is another potential issue as the administration changes relative to the support for passenger rail. We don't expect there to be a major shift in the investment for passenger rail. However, that's a conversation that's ongoing, and ARC actually has put out a solicitation for interest related to alternatives and alternative location.
And then no turn on red, what's the status on the full implementation of the legislation we passed earlier this year?
Yeah. So no right turn on red has gone through the evaluation of many of the intersections. We have cost out the signage and the pertinence requirements for implementing that. We're looking at technology opportunities at the intersections with the signals, and also collecting data for pedestrian movements. We're mandated by in 2025 to have that in place. So phasing is a priority relative to the district that we initiate, and we have currently the opportunity to include it as part of our downtown improvements, and our engineering team is working with our downtown improvements group.
Okay, so but y'all are on track for full implementation by the end of next year?
Yes.
Okay. And then the last question I'm going to ask for now, so my colleagues have an opportunity to have the microphone. I know we just did the bond legislation a couple months ago. What's the status of that, just more holistically? And then specifically, I recognize that Centennial Olympic Park Drive was included in that for resurfacing. Centennial Olympic Park Drive also is getting state funding through LMIG. And then I saw that actually Georgia Tech completed their cycle track work all the way down south to Merritt Street in my district. And I'm very interested in seeing a continuation of that bike infrastructure down Centennial Olympic Park Drive as far as we can get it, especially past by the park. It's a lot of syllables. By the park and as far south as possible. And just want to know what's going on with that. Can we see some potential changes in the design sooner than later, and provide that feedback sooner than later, but want to know what's going on with that street specifically, but with the bond package as a whole.
So the bond package work is progressing. We have established our initial tranches for how we put the work out. We have a consultant putting those packages together for immediate start in 2025. We've already started the resurfacing along the downtown corridors, and I can commit to sharing some of the designs and the packages with this body.
That'd be great. Mr. Substitute Chair, I yield for now.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Dozier. Councilor Wan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate your mentioning the 10th and Monroe work. I was there this morning freezing my little tushy off, but meeting with Thomas Heineman, the father of Alexis Heineman, who tragically lost her life at that intersection. So we're working on an appropriate memorial. Would ask that your department, to the extent that whatever we need to do on the city side to facilitate that by February, when it's the anniversary of the incident, just put that on your radar. we kind of got a pretty rude awakening yesterday with the first quarter results in finance, and I'm curious to see, it's not in your packet, but how are you doing in terms of your budget run rate as well as your staffing levels?
So I'll start with staffing.
Okay.
There was concern and conversation around our vacancy rate, and especially Atlanta Department of Transportation. So what we did was we went back, we had a conversation with Commissioner Blackburn about our strategy moving forward related to human capital, and I'm happy to announce that we brought our vacancy rate down to 21%, 40. That's something that we've been evaluating since I started in 2023. And we're also working with finance related to soft costs around our capital program and tracking all of those intimately with finance to make sure that we can break down per phase how we're spending money and who's spending our money from a soft cost perspective. We recognize some of the comments and the audit inquiries back from Renew, and we don't want to relive those. So we've committed to making sure that we're responsible with that money. What you will hear going into 2025 is not necessarily a shift, but a retooling of how we deliver on our program. So some of our legacy processes around what we scope and design may have been pie in the sky, but we have a budget and we need to stick within budget. So we need to reconsider our approach and design within budget, recognizing escalations and externalities with the market. So finance has been a great partner with that, and you'll find in 2025 that the program and the fears of running out of money, we will address those.
Okay.
And I know that's very close to your heart.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent that we can get just backup information on a little more detail on that post this meeting. I mean, I think that's something we are going to be watching a lot more closely this year, given how we're tracking so far as a city financially. But I am wanting to watch the staffing levels as well, because we made some significant investments. You're talking about retooling strategy in terms of recruitment and retention. And we just need to see if it's working, particularly in your department, because of your starting point was pretty high. Glad to hear you're making progress, but yeah, definitely would like to see some more detail on that number. Sure. Going to the financial piece of it, you've got two buckets of funds that you're working with. You've got your just regular operating budget, and then you've got your capital budget. So it'd be helpful on the operating side to understand what your run rate is like. If at the end of first quarter, if you are right around 25% of your expenditures, and if you're seeing anything unusual or spikes or shortfalls, I think we need to be tracking that as well. So, I know it wasn't in your third quarter and it's not in your fourth quarter either, but I think we need to start really looking at those numbers.
Okay.
On the capital project side, though, what is the best way for us to follow how y'all are, the progress that you're making, not just from the narrative that you provided in the project list but the actual dollars that you're deploying, the actual percentage completion that you're accomplishing on these projects, because we're entering a period. I think 25, 26 are going to be two very intense periods with all the projects that y'all have, and I would rather us have a mechanism by which we can follow you along the way versus finding ourselves at the end of 2025 and we've only spent 10% of what we need to deploy over 2 years. So what's the best way for us to walk with you on that? So
I will just speak to some of the audit recommendations from 24 and some of what you might see moving forward. There are recommendations for a steering committee, but also how we communicate, to your point, that we've already started down that path and thinking of retooling our website, thinking about how we display information on the dashboard.
Yep.
and making sure that's tied to Oracle, some of what you see through procurement and with finance. And that conversation has started already. But there's nothing that prevents us from having sit-down discussions about the detail.
That will be helpful. I think all of us that have projects in our districts will be keen to follow that. But I think I would expect and ask that by the next quarterly presentation that you have, that there is something in there. I mean, again, the next 2 years for us are going to be really intense, and you know, with the $120 million bond issuance, with the renew, with the moving forward, moving Atlanta forward, if we're not doing our job, keeping a watch on that, then again, I don't want to find us at the end of 2025, halfway through that 2-year intense period, and we're already behind when we could have been tracking that all along. So I would ask again in your next quarterly presentation that there is some sort of dashboard that we can track on this committee. The reason why I ask those questions is that I want to get to the SLAs. I mean, as we look at this chart, seeing a lot of red. And then I went back and looked at the third quarter numbers that you presented, and of the 21 categories, 9 of them are either worse or 2 of them are kind of flat. And so we're not moving in the right direction. And so that's why I asked about staffing. I feel like staffing drives a lot of that. Budget drives a lot of that as well, because if one of the strategies is outside contractors, talk to me about why these numbers aren't going in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to start with the context, digging into these categories. Okay. So if we look at, for instance, markings for preferential lanes, to what degree are we staffing and investing in markings for preferential lanes? From my perspective, I think there needs to be a reevaluation and an audit of what the expectations of the department are, so that we address the priority needs of our residents. And if you look at this list, which I inherited, and I will say that I need to be responsible for, we need to be responsive to the critical and especially the life safety priorities. So some of what you see in red, I'll call out, specialty signs. But what is not called out here are the escalations, and making sure that the direct communication between council and our residents, that our priorities and the administration are accounted for, which can be disruptive in terms of our day-to-day. Not an excuse for what our SLAs are and what they mean. However, staffing is a priority, and we've retooled with our vacancy and the personnel paper from this past mid-year exercise. The detail related to this, I think, deserves a deeper conversation, because on the face of it, you see a lot of red, but if you go through the problem types, I don't think this is representative of our operations and the improvements that the city has seen with our maintenance staff.
Okay. I'll afford you that. I think last time you talked about wanting to revisit the SLAs, so we can't keep moving the goalposts.
Sure.
If I'm just looking at it on a strict number basis, I mean, we have to acknowledge what's happening here. And if we look at it, take another slice at it. Let's look at the slide before you talk about the sheer volume. Maybe that's a way to prioritize. And even in the top 5, we're slipping on 3 of them. Potholes being the number 1. And I'll tell you, yesterday I hit a pothole. I had a flat tire, so I'm a victim of it as well. But I think at some point we have to acknowledge that, yes, there are reasons and explanations, but we have to figure out a way that we can move these numbers again in the right direction, no matter how we slice it. So I'm just going to put a pin in that. I just want to raise the issue. Obviously, you are aware of it. We're all going to stay aware of it, and hopefully in the next quarterly, we're going to see movement in the right direction as well. So it's what you presented to us, so we got to just talk about what we have here at face value. The final thing I will say is that, and I see Ms. Bromberg out there, I know that y'all are focused a lot on the projects that are already under construction. I think in 2025, I'm gonna, as I have, really start leaning into some of the projects that are in my district that are in design that we've got to move out. Again, I'm gonna keep the heat on y'all for the next 2 years. Well, at least 2025 while I'm here, and then I'll go from there. But we're just at this point where public patience and understanding, I think we've pushed that a little far. We've got World Cup coming in 2026, and we just got to get moving. So at some point, Ms. Bromberg, I'd love to get another briefing from you on the Monroe Safer Streets project. But just you're moving it, you're steering the ship. We just got to start steering faster.
Okay. And I will make one comment. I know council works with our staff, but I need to make sure that I am implanted in those conversations, because if we're going to have a serious and honest conversation, I need to make sure that we are on the same page with the administration. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wan. Commissioner Kavanaugh, a few questions. I'll start micro and then go macro. Micro, meaning my worldview, District 2, Juniper Complete Street project. It says in here, target substantial completion by end of December 2024, which is 2-3 weeks from now. I'm curious what substantial completion means, because there's a bike facility that hasn't been installed. There's resurfacing that hasn't happened. And if this document and our experience with capital projects is any indication, that may be a typo. Is it December 2025, or is it, what's the story here?
Yeah. Juniper Street has run into some utility challenges with Midtown Alliance, and we owe you an update to that time frame with Kevin Green.
Look, Commissioner,
Yeah.
I respect. You just presented a report then with false information here.
It's a
not
typo,
incumbent on us.
council member, and maybe I should have started by saying happy holidays, because I want us to leave off 2024 on a good foot. So apologies for the typo, council member. Juniper Street is a partnership that we're doing with Midtown Alliance, and yes, that's a typo.
All right. So when do we expect completion? And I to be full disclosure, I sit on the Midtown Improvement District Board, so I get updates from Midtown Alliance and the DID, which is managing this project, which is what we've allowed big CIDs to do in the city, which is great. So I can ask the same question to them. But to your knowledge, when do we expect resurfacing and because the sidewalks have been redone, the curbs have been put in, but it's a bit of a mess through there. And I'm getting complaints from residents of hey, the street's a mess. When is this going to be complete?
Yeah. So,
if you don't know, we can take it offline.
let's take it offline.
Okay.
And you are a part of the Midtown Alliance board. I will make sure that the CEO provides an update as well to the board. So,
and I mean, I would say if for projects that CIDs are managing, either they should be providing an update directly into this document, or we can have them come here to give these updates too if we need to. But you're our point of contact.
Yes.
The DOT manages those projects through those CIDs, and so I think we prefer it to be you. But we want to make sure we're getting as much real-time information as we can. Thank you. Councilmember Dozier mentioned the RFP for parking enforcement or third-party parking enforcement. You indicated an RFP is slated to go out in January, plus or minus.
yes.
And he articulated a concern that myself, Councilmember Amos, and others have articulated, which is this gap that exists in enforcement with respect to non-moving parking violations, right? Parking in a lane of traffic, or, DoorDash or Uber Eats driver puts their car there, or FedEx truck, whatever it may be, all sorts of violations that exist. And one reason this gap exists is APD doesn't have the resources or chooses not to do it. That's a conversation that has to be had with APD. We've had it over and over again. Just this problem still exists. On the other hand, the third-party parking enforcement under the current contract is limited in the types of tickets they can issue based on both state law and the RFP that was issued that they're operating under. So we passed legislation a few months ago that would allow in this new RFP, this was an artful solution articulated by the law department, allow in the RFP that the individuals working for the third-party parking enforcement get certified as code enforcement officers by APD to issue specific types of non-moving violations that are permissible under state law. So like parking too close to a stop sign or parking in a fire. So stuff that's beyond the current scope, doesn't require any, this is a similar ticket that one would write, right? And I guess my question to you is, are we able to, you mentioned some technology, fine, but are we able to see the RFP? Do we need to talk to procurement before it goes out? Because what I don't want to see happen is an RFP goes out, we don't have expanded powers, and this problem continues to exist. And it's only going to get worse because we have more and more density coming into the, this inner city, more and more cars and people, and conflicts that arise when you don't manage our curbside well. And so I guess my question is, what will the RFP include with respect to this concern?
And I'd be more comfortable having that conversation one-on-one with council. This is a very sensitive topic, and also to include law. We have gotten recommendations from peer cities in terms of how they handle it, and also conversations with our public safety folks have been included. So that's a conversation that I'd like to have.
Yeah, I'd love to have that conversation. The sooner the better. I know we're into the holidays, but I don't want to see an RFP go out that leaves us vulnerable to this same problem continuing for, the next 5-6 years, right? I mean, we have an enforcement agency that's not enforcing the law because of lack of capacity. This is a solution to try and address that. We're finding resistance in various pockets, including with the enforcement agency, APD. And so we need to get clear on solving this, because this is a problem, not just in my district and other people's districts. I hear from residents all the time. We experience it all the time. And there's a lack of urgency in trying to solve for it. I understand there's more significant public safety concerns than a misparked car, but it impacts people's efficiency of moving around town, safety. There's a whole bunch of unintended consequences that happens, including just the general cost of existing in a city. So I'd love to have this conversation with you. I don't want with any of my colleagues that also want to have this conversation with you, but it's a point of great interest to me. And then the last thing was just as more of a curiosity question. We have recently passed a paper to launch a AI working group to look at ways that the city could better deploy AI in a range of buckets, right? Customer service, efficiencies within departments. But I was in DC a month or so ago with a number of electeds, and it was in a conversation. It was an AI working group meeting, but then it was in a conversation with the comptroller in Albany, New York, who indicated that they have AI devices on their sanitation trucks that monitor for potholes as they're going around town. So there's one cross-departmental coordination, but there's tools like that we could be deploying that make it quicker to fix potholes, and you don't have to wait on a council member or a 311 call to do it. It's more proactive. And so I'm curious, and if the answer is no, that's fine. We're going to invite you to come talk, be in the room, or anyone from your team that wants to be in the room for these working group sessions. But what is ATL-DOT doing with AI?
Yeah. All right. This could be a dissertation.
Yeah, well, we don't need to have a dissertation today. But
we are investigating how we use AI. I will didn't plan on sharing this, but we're about 98% of our asset scan complete and scrubbing the data, and we're using AI for the evaluation of, what are manhole challenges, what are watershed challenges. I will mention we're also working with Public Works because they're piloting that system, as you mentioned, on the trucks to look at pavement conditions. So look forward to the AI conversation. And we're having conversations with Microsoft about all the tools and experiences around the world that they're employed through their systems.
Well, I look forward to including the department in those conversations.
Great.
Interesting area that could improve our city.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think I'll say happy holidays first to you.
Thank you.
I know you said it to us, but I know the goal is to make sure we can get some of this stuff done, so it may not be a happy holiday type conversation. First, I was looking at capital. I'll start from the top, ATL organizational leadership. And I know that we have a deputy commissioner, capital delivery, no longer, it's been vacant for a while. And most of our issues are around capital projects. And so I'm wondering, is that correlating or where are we? Because
Yeah, so thank you, Councilmember Lewis. So there has not been a impact per se without leadership there. Our chief of staff and the rest of the team, leadership team, has rallied around our capital group. We also have contractors who are supporting that, and we have a program manager that also supports that role.
And I say that because my issues are around capital projects. And I went through the capital project list that you gave us today, and I don't see, I wrote a note. And I don't see District 12 at all in it. And I'm wondering, how do we, same question I asked you in the last, how do I get on the capital project list? And I know, and hearing a date on page 7, December, on the Juniper Complete Street, when December 2024 just being a phantom date because we're in December 2024 and it won't happen in December 2024. So it's hard for me to fully trust even this. And so me not being on this and not trusting this, where are we with projects in District 12? Because 2 straight meetings, no capital projects has been for District 12.
Yeah, so we've broken it into regions, and you will notice Southeast does have our signal program and Macon Drive and Old Hapeville Road signal improvements. We have Connolly Road actually in design, which we've been talking about for a long time. We also have recently just resurfaced University. We are pursuing and actually making improvements to ADA and sidewalks throughout District 12. BRT extends from Thomasville just north of District 12, but will service Southside Beltline in that community. So there is substantial activity. The Safe Routes to Schools work that we've been doing.
We're going to go through that next, but I was just making sure. I want to go through it point by point. Capital projects across the city, this is a whole section. And I went through just to make sure. And I know you're announcing projects to me right now. I truly wish, and I know my folks in my district, they're watching these meetings. We have people in the room right now who live in my district. And they have projects that, they have projects that they want to hear about. And so I'm looking at this in 2 meetings straight, and I'm just hoping that I can get on the sheet in the next meeting, that we can be a part of it. And so we can keep going through. So capital projects, according to this, I don't see me on there. And the one that I'm most concerned would be the project partnership with MARTA. I've been able to talk to them a lot, and I know it should be on here. Cleveland Avenue, this year, 2025 should be shovels in the ground, Councilman Lewis, all over the district. We've done everything we're supposed to do on this side, everything we're supposed to do. Even the Browns Mill meeting that was canceled last week, and we'll talk about that because I know I sent you an email December 4th that I haven't received a response to yet. And so we'll go through, but I need to be known as shovels in the ground next year because we've done everything. And I've always tried to ask you in the budget hearings, do you have what you need to make sure that the city's taken care of? And you always reply to me, we're good. And so I just want to make sure that I'm just verifying right now. And so according to capital projects, I'm not good here. And so I'm hoping to be good in the next meeting because the last meeting I wasn't good there. This is another meeting in which you gave a report. I'm not good here. Organizational leadership, I would at least like to talk to somebody about capital delivery because my only thing I'm concerned, very concerned about my capital projects in my district actually happening that are supposed to happen in 2025. Under construction project list, I went through that as well, and even under citywide ITS signals, I mean, District 12 is not on there. I went through it under the construction and project list. Not only 12, 10, 11, or 12 aren't on it. So the entire post 3 portion. And you can go through it if you want to. This is page 15 and 16 where your under construction project lists are. And I know they aren't here today, but where should we be on this? Because I see you have and it may be a mistake, or maybe I have an incomplete package, because it says northwest, central, northeast, west, central, and east. And we southwest Atlanta. And so everything is on here except, and I'm just saying that, and that's why I say a sheet may be missing, because 10, 11, and 12 aren't on here. I'm just hoping to be a part of I want to be a part of this stuff. That's all I want to be a part of. I want to make sure that the people in my area are intentionally a part of it, because we're not on it.
So, Councilmember, if I may interrupt, you've made a request for every project and the status of every project, and my staff have submitted that to your office. So you have that. In terms of calling out District 12, you'll notice that we do have a number of projects that do touch District 12. And
Which one?
We have signals. We have Nelson Street resurfacing. We have.
I circled that. That's on a different portion, though. That's not under this portion. I circled that.
Great. Southwest is included as part of this. However, District 12 isn't included as part of Southwest. We have a number of signal improvements, which also include intersection improvements citywide that include District 12. But if the need is to run through everything happening in District 12, which I've committed in past to making sure you understand that that's happening, maybe I haven't done a good enough job, I will make sure that we find time. And going back to your email about not receiving a response, I think you did receive a response, an initial response based on the situation, but if you'd like to get into that.
We will. I followed up with it. I got
yes.
specific questions on it, so
Great.
we can. I followed up with it specifically. And on page 14, I do see citywide resurfacing Nelson Street, which is one portion of it is in District 12, and then Macon Drive, Old Hateville Road, Bromack Drive signals. And that's a signal that is there's one signal that, because I live in the area, my auntie lives on Bromack Drive, one signal that's right there. And so I understand that. So we got one signal that's on Macon Drive that we're talking about. And Nelson Street is District 4. One portion of it is in our council member sitting to my left, Councilmember Dozier, knows that most of Nelson Street sits in Mechanicsville. And so I'm just trying to be a part of the process. Safe routes to school. Thank you so much for working with our office, and because I know we took funding out of our fund. We took funding to set aside to make sure that this would happen, to make sure that we would get attention, which is why we're the only one on there right now on the Safe Routes to Schools. And my hope is that the funding that we set aside with Councilmember Jason Winston would also be a part of this, and that would be the Carver cluster.
Okay. Sure.
The email on Tuesday, what I wanted to talk about on it was, and before we even go into that, moving Atlanta forward, the project by district list, we would like updates on, because I know we didn't have the meeting on Brownsmill Road sidewalk, Aileen Ave and Avon Ave intersection improvements, Mount Zion Road sidewalk installation, Cleveland Avenue. We've been working with MARTA to try to get as much as we can from them, but we want to make sure that the transportation department is giving us everything they can. But we would like one-pagers on these lists, because we haven't been, I need to be able to talk to folks in my area about what is actually happening, because we don't see them on here. Lastly, on the meeting for last week that was canceled, my questions around it are, how does your staff, or what's the procedure or policy, or is there a policy or procedure that you follow for winter updates for warming centers? Is there a sheet that you follow?
Yes, so we have a manual for winter weather activity.
And I know that's one of my requests that I asked in the email that you can get. So that's why I'm asking you in public, because I asked on December 4th and we just never got it. So today's
sorry that you didn't get I'll make
Today's
sure
the
that you
11th.
have that.
The next thing I want to know, how many staff members do you have that work at warming centers?
Our staff are in a support role for warming centers. We have folks who go and volunteer at warming centers, but we generally support warming centers for resources.
I just want to make sure, so could you let me know how many staff members you had to move that day for the 2 warming centers that we had, 2 to 4 warming centers we had citywide? I want to make sure because in that same recreation center, we had voting going on that day. We had my Little League boys and girls basketball team, 3 teams practicing on the floor in that same recreation center. And I just want to make sure that, and we had swim practice. The high school was doing swim practice in that same exact recreation center, that same exact day. And so I want to make sure that we are using our capacity to the best. And if the capacity of the transportation department is there, I just want to know how many people. So if you can, just let me know how many people were there, and that way we'll be on point with what's going on.
Well, to speak to the meeting, it's not uncommon that we have to postpone or move a community meeting for operations. This was the first event of the season, of freezing temperatures, and we actually activated our skeleton crews to be supportive of all these events that are going on around the city. The worst thing we can do is be caught behind the 8 ball, and we have accidents related to winter weather. So, relative to the priorities, not to deprioritize community meetings and going out to the community. However, we need to make sure that public safety and the safety of the residents are.
And I just know, and I know you all take care of the roads of the city. So I actually went out with our last commissioner. I know I put it in the email. We dropped salt on the road because we were preparing for a winter freeze. And I truly understand why we need to do that. But that night, just knowing we didn't cancel anything else for as a city, I just want to make sure that I get the stuff that the transportation department did on Tuesday night, that we were voting in every recreation center in the city of Atlanta.
Yeah, but in context, it was a community meeting to talk about a project. So relative to public safety and the first major winter event, it was a call that we had to make sure that our resources were in order.
And I'm okay with that. Because I know our Parks and Rec department didn't do it, which is why our kids were swimming in the gym and they were playing basketball. I know our high schools didn't do it, which is why South Atlanta and Carver were swimming in our pool practicing for their swim meet. And I know that the Fulton County Elections Board didn't do it because they were voting in our recreation center. So I just want to make sure that we're okay. I just want to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to. And the streets, and to be clear, I actually have a 1-pager that has all of the projects that I would like to know about in District 12. And so there are 22 projects in District 12 I would like 1-pagers on. That way I can put it out to the public so they know where we are. And if possible, because Councilmember Faroki said he read it and he was going through it. If possible, can we make sure that if you have something that day, it shouldn't, if we're in December 2024 and we know it's not going to happen December 2024, if possible, can you give me an up-to-date list if you know that? If you know it, 'cause I don't want you to read me something and you know that's not going to happen that month.
Sure. One point I would make, you asked if we're good and if we have what we need. If we're asking for 22 1-pagers, the amount of work that goes into those resources to prepare 22 1-pagers just for District 12, I'm sure we can find a more efficient communication medium, i.e. our website and our dashboard. But that's a conversation I'm willing to have with you. I just want everyone to recognize the amount of work that it takes to produce some of these packages. And to be
like
respectful
meetings.
of all the hard work that our staff has done.
I respect it. I liked it. But I would like meetings. I would like meetings in the public with our constituents.
Sure.
But they want paper. They want something to take home. And I know it's hard sometimes to do a little bit extra. But if possible, because we just read something today as a city council person that says March 2024 for Juniper Drive. And me and you,
December.
The council member who lives there knows that's not true. You know that's not true. And so I want something I can hold and give to people because imagine they've been hearing stuff. I just want something I can hold people accountable to. And so I I wish that we didn't have to work so hard, but I think we should have one pages on our projects. We should know, and I think every council member should want to know a quick one pager about a project going on in their district. And so I wish I didn't have to. What I always ask during the budget season is, do you have enough staff to complete the task that we're going to request? And so it's just a task I'm requesting.
I'd enjoy having that conversation with you versus committing to that amount of resource and make sure that we're on the same page in terms of what you're asking for. I don't want to impact our resources to a point that if the issue is trust and communication, let's address the issue.
Verifying.
Absolutely,
verifying.
absolutely. And to go back to Councilmember Faroki's point about the date for December 24th, we have held substantial completion for that work, however, the bike lane and the utilities, and I apologize for that December 25th. I do not want to use that as a measuring stick for all the...
But it is. You read it. You read it to us today, and he had to bring it up because you finished finished the entire presentation. And so while he was asking questions, he said, "Hey, this actually happened." Only reason I'm asking the question out and loud is because a meeting. I want to make sure. I prefer us having community meetings. I prefer them. Like University Avenue, we were asking for a community meeting, and we saw University Avenue actually getting repaved the next day. And so, that's something I've talked to folks about. So my request is for community meetings or one pages. I'm fine with either. Oh. But community meetings are not happening. Projects are happening. We don't have many shovels in the ground. So when a shovel goes in the ground, we want to know when, how, and why it's happening. If not, give us a one pager so I can just make sure that the community knows when not to go down this street today.
Receive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Happy holidays.
Yes, and closing remarks, I just want to say thank you to Atlanta Department of Transportation, all of our partners, everyone sitting in the audience for being there in support of us in 2024. We've had a heck of a year. I've personally had a heck of a year with family. I got another funeral to go to after this. So going into the holiday, please hold your little ones tight and, take stock of all your blessings. So have a happy holiday.
Thank you, and thank you to the entire department. All right, we have quorum, so we can tackle a number of voting items, the first of which is the adoption of the agenda. Motion to adopt by Juan, second by Dozier. Please open the vote.
One moment, please. Vote is open. Vote is closed. Oh, sorry. Yep. Item is favorable. Move on.
All good. Second, approval of the minutes. Motion approved by Juan, second by Dozier. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The item's adopted.
Moving to section G, we have one ordinance for first read. I'll turn it over to Overton to read in the caption.
This is item number 1, 24-01703, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city to execute all documents necessary for the additional acquisition of certain property interests necessary for the South Downtown pedestrian enhancements, authorizing negotiations with property owners for the acquisition of such property interest, authorizing title searches, appraisals, surveys, and any other items necessary for the acquisition of such property interest, authorizing the mayor and the city attorney, in the event negotiations are unsuccessful, to institute condemnation proceedings pursuant to the declaration of taking method in Official Code of Georgia, annotated section 32-3-1, et sequitur, waiving certain provisions of Article 10, Real Estate and Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, all contracted work and payments for property interest to be paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
This is first read. Ordinance for second read. I think we have just a handful, 6 or 7 or so today.
Yes, that's correct. First up is item number 2. That's 24-01682, an ordinance by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to execute an agreement for a RFP number listed herein. for homeless and transient mitigation program with Travelers Aid, doing business as Hope Atlanta at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport on behalf of the Department of Aviation for a term of 3 years, beginning retroactively on November 12, 2024, with 2 one-year renewals in an amount not to exceed $2,667,165.72. All contracted services will be charged to and paid from account number listed herein and for other purposes.
Motion approved by Juan. I'll second. Does aviation want to make any comment on this? Nope. Okay, great. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. That's 4 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. Moving on to item number 3. This is, Mr. Chair, there is a request to substitute this item.
Motion substituted by Juan, second by Faroki. Please open the vote.
The vote is open. The substitute changes the recitals and corrects the boundary of the parking permit area. The substitute is before the committee.
I think
The
preferred motion is a motion to hold here. Is that correct?
Yes, I can read the caption first, but yeah. This is item number 3, 2401685. An ordinance by Councilmember Byron D. Amos as substituted by Transportation Committee to amend Chapter 150, Article 4, Division 4, to create a new residential parking program to be entitled Vine City Residential Parking Area, to waive certain requirements of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances, Sections 150-through 148, and Section 150-149, and for other purposes.
Motion to hold by Juan, second by Faroki. Please open the vote on the motion to hold.
Vote is open. Oh, vote is closed. That's 4 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. The item is held. Next item is item number 4. That's 2401689. An ordinance by Councilmember Byron D. Amos authorizing the Department of Transportation to establish an intermunicipal bus fee applied to all municipal or operated, non-model operated buses entering and operating in the City of Atlanta, coming from other municipalities, to amend article to be filled in later of the Atlanta Code of Ordinances to enact such a fee, and to provide for exemptions and enforcement measures and for other purposes. Mr. Chair, there is a motion to hold this, a request to hold this item.
So moved. Is there a second? Second by Juan. Please open the vote on the motion to hold.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. That's 4 yeas, 0 nays. The item is held. And that brings us to item number 5. This is 2401693. An ordinance by Councilmember Marcy Collier Overstreet authorizing the mayor on behalf of the city to execute all documents necessary for the additional acquisition of certain property interests necessary for the Campbellton Road Sidewalk Project. Authorizing negotiations with property owners for the acquisition of such property interest, authorizing title searches, appraisals, surveys, and any other items necessary for the acquisition of such property interest, authorizing the mayor and the city attorney in the event negotiations are unsuccessful to institute the condemnation proceedings pursuant to the declarations of taking method from the official code of Georgia annotated section 32-3-1 ex sequitur, waiving certain provisions of Article 10 Real Estate and Procurement Code of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances. All contractor work will be and payments for the property interest to be paid from account number listed herein and for other purposes.
Great. I will move to approve. This is a second by Juan. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. It's 4 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable. That brings us to our resolutions. If there's no objections from the committee, can we take items 6 and 7 as a block?
Please do.
All right. Item number 6, 24R4658, a resolution by Transportation Committee authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Atlanta Airlines Terminal Company for the Central Passenger Terminal Complex miscellaneous renewal and replacement fiscal year 2025 projects at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport for a cost to the city not to exceed $35,500,000.00 to be charged to and paid from account number listed herein and for other purposes. And item number 7, 24R4659, a resolution by Transportation Committee supplementing a joint task order fund for fiscal year 2025 in an amount not to exceed $1,586,000.00 for use under 2 planning support service contracts for services at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. All services will be charged to and paid from account numbers listed herein and for other purposes.
Motion approved by Juan, second by Faroki. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. 4 yeas, 0 nays. The items are favorable. Mr. Chair, there is one paper to come off the held list for consideration, and that is item number 20 on the agenda. There is a request to substitute this item.
Second. Motion by Juan, second by Faroki. Please open the vote on the motion to substitute.
One moment. Vote is open. Vote is closed. The substitute is before the committee. For the record, the substitute updates the account information in the legislation and attaches the project management agreement in substantial form. And this is item number 20, 24R4443, a resolution by Councilmember Dustin Hillis, as substituted by Transportation Committee, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a project management agreement with the West Side/Howell Mill Community Improvement District for West Side Thrive, safely linking underserved Atlanta communities through multimodal improvement projects, to authorize the mayor or his designee to execute all agreements related to West Side Thrive and for other purposes.
Motion to approve on substitute by Juan, second by Faroki. Please open the vote.
Vote is open. Vote is closed. That's 4 yeas, 0 nays. The item is favorable on substitute.
All right.
That
brings
concludes
us
our
to
legislative agenda.
End of our legislative agenda. Thanks everyone for attending today's committee meeting. Any closing comments from the body? One Grinch, but the Grinch, the lesson of the Grinch is he comes around at the end. So I know Councilmember Dozier will be having a happy holidays as well. Yeah, happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.